Well, hello, folks. This is Tim and Kimberly with Hope Rescue Podcast. And I've been thinking, Kimberly, about something.
Yes, Tim.
And that is, why do marriages fall apart? And this is rhetorical, so don't give
Okay.
me
I was taking a breath because I was about to give you a long list.
Yeah, you were. Well, we know this, that marriages fall apart because many, many reasons. But one of the reasons is the lack of encouragement.
That is
In
so
other
true.
words, I'm married to you, so you're stuck with me, so, deal. No, the reality is you need to intentionally encourage your partner
Yeah.
constantly. So what we want to do is we want to dig back in. This is our final episode on this I think this is the longest series we've ever done.
I don't know. They're probably thinking that too.
Yeah. But these are really good things, like the essential character traits of all relationships. We've talked about patience and confidence and self-esteem, passion, optimism, flexibility, humility, respect, gratitude.
Yeah, and encouragement.
And we added this extra one because we didn't want to finish with 9.
Yeah.
No, this is really
It's key.
an important aspect of all of our relationships. Every relationship you have, whether it's with your adult children, your young children, your spouse, your friends, your coworkers, your employees, your boss, if you're not an encourager, you're not going to be all that God has called you to be.
Well, and think about
Encouraging
this.
is important.
Each person listening right now, think about in your life when you hit a crisis, when you hit a celebration, when you are on life's highs or lows, and the person that you want to reach out to, or the persons, what is the common denominator that they have in common? And my thought would be, without a doubt, that they are encouragers in your life. They are your champions. They are your coaches. They are your cheerleaders in life. They are a source of encouragement for you when you're down, when you're up, celebrating your wins. So it's a powerful tool in relationships.
Yep.
It's something that you can give away. It's a gift that you can give away every day, and it is has the power to completely transform your relationships.
Yeah, one of the things that I do, along with preaching at church and on a weekly basis, and doing our weekly podcast, I also run a company. And in running this company, one of the things, I actually went over these notes with my executive team. And the reason I did is because they're awesome people. They're really high quality people. But you know what? Sometimes you don't know how good you are until somebody says, hey, you know what? You're really good.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful thing to do for somebody.
Powerful.
It's a gift that comes back strongly. Well, we have this scripture. We're going to do 2 scriptures, just briefly comment on those, and then talk about why we should encourage people. But you want to read the first one?
Sure. Proverbs 16:21. The wise of heart is called discerning, and sweetness of speech increases persuasiveness.
Wow, that's powerful. Sweetness
Right.
of speech. Yeah.
Good sense is a fountain of life to him who has it, but the instruction of fools is folly. The heart of the wise makes his speech judicious and adds persuasiveness to his lips. Gracious words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul and health to the body.
I think of a honeycomb, I'm like, yeah, I'll have that.
Yeah, give me a scoop of that.
Yeah, give me sweetness to the soul. That's so powerful. By the way, when I shared this with my team, it's not a Christian organization. It's just a secular business. Not just, but it is a secular business. So I don't bring up scripture, but I certainly bring up biblical principles.
Right.
And here's one that comes out of Proverbs 12:25. Anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down. I don't know if you've ever been anxious, you ever been fearful of the future, but it weighs you down. But a good word makes him glad.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times you've lifted me up, and I've lifted you up. And I heard you not too long ago, actually just a few moments ago, lifting somebody up in a really powerful way. And that power of encouragement should never, I can't overstate how important it is. It's just a really powerful
It is.
thing.
And a simple way of defining encouragement would be to instill courage. Encourage.
Yeah,
To
that's a
instill
good way to
courage.
remember.
Yeah. Encourage and giving hope. So you think about that, like you're passing out courage when you give encouragement. And why do we encourage? Well, fear is the enemy of productivity. We know that.
Yeah.
So when we function in fear, we impede momentum in our lives and in other people's lives. But courage pushes us past that fear and into action.
Yeah, that's really powerful when you think about it. So here's we just made a list of, let's see, how many things? 5 things. And you could probably come up with your own list, but this is us sharing our insight on this. Number 1, courage is power over fear, which you already mentioned, but think about this. When you're afraid to move forward and somebody enters into your life and says, you can do this, do you know that's why, like football teams, they call it the 11th man, or the 12th man, whatever it is. I get my sports together. But you have 5 guys on a basketball floor, the 6th man. You've got that person, that group of people encouraging, cheering on better behavior. That is a really powerful thing, and it makes a big difference. That's why home games are
oh my gosh, yes.
so
impactful.
Yeah, they really are. Number 2, motivation to a better future. When you're encouraged, you are motivated to have a better alternative future. If somebody's not encouraging you, I don't care how strong you are and how healthy you are, at some point you're going to need encouragement to produce your best. And
I was going to say to that, a lot of times they use that term, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but very few people have the ability when they are down and out to muster and pull up, their bootstraps and keep moving forward. That's a unique thing. Almost always the people that do that turn it around, are being encouraged, being cheerleaded by someone in their life. It's not that we don't hit the lows, but we have people behind us that are moving us forward in courage.
Let me give you a little vignette going into this next point. So you're a mom dealing with your child, and the child is just rebelling against everything that you are trying to get them to do, trying to get them to learn or whatever, and you're very frustrated. And here's the vignette. You pull together with your husband and you start talking, and you have somebody as a sounding board, but also somebody that says, you know what, you're doing a great job on this. And your job is not the outcome. Your job is the input.
Right.
You're given the good input, and we're going to leave it in his hands to become a responsible young boy or girl, whatever it was, whatever case it is. Then here's the point that vignette points me to, and that is change always has resistance. When you're trying to change, get people to grow and so forth, whether it's in business or family or whatever it is, fear keeps us stuck, and encouragement causes us to push past this. And, there's an old saying, if you do what you always did, you get what you always got.
Right.
And I don't know who said that first, but I heard my dad say it.
But it's true.
And it is true, but you got to change.
Yeah.
If you want a different outcome, you're going to have to change the way you do things. So whether it's raising children or encouraging better behavior in your spouse or whatever it is, those changes meet with resistance. Encouragement is a really powerful thing to push us past those fears. So those are,
and just kind of recap that. If you're in any kind of leadership, whether in your home, at your work, or whatever, it demands change, like you just said. And so you're always having to stay flexible, and fear can totally stop that process. But encouragement can really turn it around. Number 5 is teams that are not encouraged by their supervisor are motivated by money or job security.
So in sharing this with my executive team at work, I wanted them to understand that their teams, and they're executives, so they have teams of people, in some cases a lot of people, in some cases not so many. But the point being that when they encourage them, their teams are not just looking for a good job security or more money. that is one of the weakest reasons people stay in a corporation.
Right.
The reason people stay is because they have a sense of self-worth, and they know their job and they know their purpose.
Right.
Those are the things that drive them. Encouragement is what drives that.
Right.
So, just talking about, and it was just really important thing about encouragement is how to encourage. It doesn't come naturally for some reason, and here's why. We are selfish people. So let me give you a biblical vignette. So the first generation coming out of Adam and Eve, they have these two sons, Cain and Abel. And one of the sons brings the best of his labor. He brings, the fruit of his farming and so forth. The soil produced this, and he brought it to the Lord. But the Lord had required a blood sacrifice. The other brother brings a blood sacrifice, so God accepts that. Now, the question was, where's your brother? And he says, I'm not my brother's keeper. Well, in fact, the answer, am I my brother's keeper? And the answer is yes, you are your brother's keeper. I share that because of this. Even though you may not do a great job on something, if you have something to which you can encourage someone, it is a really powerful thing to do that. When somebody does a fair job, encourage them. If somebody gets a C on the report card, encourage them.
Right.
If somebody sings a song and it maybe didn't hit every note perfectly, encourage them.
Right.
Encouragement causes growth. Now, I don't mean to say, hey, that was the best I've ever heard when it wasn't. Don't lie to them.
Right.
But encourage them. And Cain and Abel should have been encouraging each other.
Right, because they were both bringing their best.
Yeah, but the natural tendency of the flesh is to compete with other people.
Compete and compare.
Compete and compare. Well said.
Yeah.
And so encouragement dislodges that. So here are 5 things of how to encourage. Number 1, you must have personal confidence. So you will never be an encourager until you have personal confidence. Because if you're competing and comparing, it's because you don't have self-confidence. If you have personal confidence, then what you're going to do is, I'm satisfied with who I am, and I'm just thankful that I'm watching
give it away.
you. Yeah, you give it away. You're free to give it away. So it's really important to have that personal confidence that drives encouragement. And so really work on yourself. Like we talked about last week, speak to your soul. Say, bless the Lord, O my soul. Be thankful for all that God has done. When you find that, it's going to build up your self-confidence and give you a reservoir. And I think encouragement is like a cup. When you fill it up, you have something to pour into somebody else.
Yes.
But if it's empty, you've got
You
nothing
don't.
to pour
Right.
into anybody else's life. So if you're a parent, make sure that your heart is right with God, your heart is right with your spouse as best as you can do. And then that outpour, especially if you are in this together. Kimberly and I are in life together. I know couples that are not. They just aren't working together. They're working against each other. I think a lot of couples start out that way and get more connected. But we're in this together. So if Kimberly and I are encouraging each other, then the overflow will be into our children's
Right,
lives.
absolutely. Anybody we touch.
Yeah, and especially now that our kids are grown. So if you have grown kids, encouragement doesn't stop.
But I would say
Keeps
to
going.
those who don't have a significant other,
Yeah.
which there's many, one of the first things I learned in my first marriage when I did not have an encouraging husband like you are, Tim, and it was actually just
You
the
said
opposite.
that just the way I told you to.
Just the opposite was the situation where I was feeling torn down and berated and belittled. I think that what you need to remember is what I remember in my first year. I remember literally laying on the carpet, sobbing, crying out to God, and Him speaking to my heart and saying, don't look into that person's eyes to see his reflection of you and how he sees you and listen to those words. Look into my eyes and my word to see how I see you, how I speak about who you are and your value and your worth and your calling in your life. And there was something that happened in my soul and my spirit that day that I released that expectation that I had put on someone that wasn't capable of doing that. So if you don't have someone that's your encourager, your cheerleader in life, whether it's a family member or a spouse or a significant other, you always have the best cheerleader on your team. And that's Jesus. I mean, all you have to do is crack open his word to see and hear how he sees you. And it's with unconditional love and acceptance and the beauty of who you are. And he will speak those things over you every single day of your life if you're willing to open your ears and your heart to him. So that's to the single person, because I see you and I've been there, and you always have a cheerleader, whether you're getting it in your ear or not. To those who are married, we are called to reflect that to our spouses and to our children and those we influence every day.
Yeah, encouragement creates an environment of growth,
Right.
Always.
Right.
And I think that, I benefit from that moment in your life because that was a moment where you turned to God instead of your
Right.
husband. And then when he abandoned you and you were a single mom, you kept going back there
Right.
and finding
My
the
safe
Lord
place.
satisfied.
Right.
And then the benefit is that I got you and the demands on me were less. Although, I mean, I have a personal responsibility to bring the best that I have to you as a husband, to you as a wife from a husband. And yet I benefit because I don't have to meet some standard to fulfill your needs. It's my joy to do that, but you're not demanding that.
Right.
Something about the demandingness of our souls, when we're satisfied in God, we back off of that. That's
Yeah.
a whole other podcast right there.
It is.
The second thing is this, how to encourage. So first, you got to start with you. Secondly, you must know where you are going. If you want to encourage somebody to go somewhere, you got to know where that's going. You've got to give them good direction. If you're telling your kids, you need to behave, okay, give them a reason. Right. Give them a reason to behave. I want you to avoid this in your life. Give them a reason to do that. Don't just say do it. Give them a reason. Give them direction. Encouragement always has direction.
Points them the right way.
It points them in the right way. And the same, when you self-encourage, point yourself in the way that you're supposed to go.
Yeah.
And the beauty is when they are old, they will not depart
That's
from
right.
it.
Yeah,
So
that's right. The next one, number 3, is you must care about the person, not just their productivity. And that speaks to obviously in the home and at work. People can tell the difference when you're trying to pump them up to get to a goal that you want that benefits you. It's different than pumping them up because you see who they are and their potential. So it's really important that you speak to their potential for their sake and encourage them for their sake, and not just about them being productive to be able to, come back and even as parenting, if your goal is to have them make you look good as a parent, well, that's not the encouragement they need. Your goal in encouraging your children or your coworkers or whatever is for them to fulfill their fullest potential and to continue to grow. And they can tell the difference.
Yeah.
They can tell the difference. So be intentional when you do that.
Yeah, this next point, Kimberly, before you give it, I want people to listen to this in light of what we call manipulation. And when you think about manipulation, and maybe you've been manipulated, maybe you've manipulated others. If you want to be an encourager, listen to the next point.
You do this one.
Okay. You must be careful that your ego is not the driver of encouragement. So when your ego is the driver of encouragement, you're actually manipulating people to submit to you. And instead of encouraging them to be a better person, encouraging their growth for no alternative motive other than their joy, their benefit, their value, that is, and like you said, they'll know the difference.
Right.
Your kids will know the difference. Your spouse will know the difference. If I try to encourage Kimberly to be a better person, it's not about my ego. It's about her as a person. I want her to be better. And I think a lot of times we don't even know how much our egos play into this. And so, here they are, and we're going to get the last one here, but you must have personal confidence. Secondly, you must know where you're going. Third, you must care about the person. Number 4, be careful not to let your ego be the basis of encouragement. And here's number 5.
You can wrap it up.
Oh, okay.
You're on a roll.
Okay. After listening to your team's challenge, or after listening to your husband or your spouse's challenges, your kids, they say, you're not doing this. You yell at me, or whatever the challenge is to you as a parent or a spouse or a friend or a coworker. You must be specific about the direction needed. In other words, listen to what they have to say. When you encourage people, encourage them on the directions that are specifically needed. I think so many times people just, talk like they're trying to encourage, but they're really not specific about what is necessary to change. So, should you be an encourager? Yes, you should. Here's just to wrap up our whole series. And we're all done with this. We're starting a new series next week on communication. You're going to love it. But be patient with people.
Yeah.
If you're in a relationship, be confident. Have self-esteem, good, healthy self-esteem. Be passionate in your relationships. Have optimism. Don't be negative all the time. Be flexible. There are things that happen you have no control over. Learn to be flexible. Be humble. It's not all about you. Be respectful. Always in all your relationships, be respectful. Be grateful. We talked about last week, and today we've talked about encouraging. Be an encourager. I'll tell you, if you take these 10 areas of essentials, character traits in relationships, I believe your relationships will improve. Look, if you listen to this series and you like this series, encourage somebody else to go to our website, hoperescuepodcast.org, hoperescuepodcast.org. They're all archived there, and they can listen to these and go through these anytime they want. So I hope these have been helpful.
Yeah, it's been fun for us.
Good to talk about it. And next week, we're going to talk about communication, such an important aspect of our lives. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye, guys.